At a military base in the middle of nowhere, some agents spot bizarre creatures approaching through the security cameras. One of the soldiers decides to go investigate and ends up being attacked by a type of demonic pterodactyl that eats him alive. Gradually, all the people inside the base are eliminated by these monsters. Minutes later, the creature spread to every corner of the planet, destroying everything in their path. Military forces from around the world unite to defeat these subterranean creatures, but the number of invaders continues to grow. The attack started with the appearance of an eclipse and came to an end 24 hours later. After the tragedy, authorities around the world proposed the creation of a new security department to guarantee the lives of the population should a second event occur. 15 years have passed and humanity is preparing for the arrival of a new eclipse. Everyone is apprehensive, not knowing if there will be another attack. Laura is a science teacher and has intensified her research in an attempt to understand that phenomenon. Her coworker, Milton, invites her to dinner, since Laura's ex-husband will be with his son that weekend. The woman is initially reluctant, but decides to accept the invitation. At the skate rink after practice, Tyler says goodbye to his friends and goes to talk to his girlfriend. Maddie confesses that she is worried about what might happen after the eclipse the next day, because her parents are traveling and she will be home alone. However, Tyler claims that there is nothing to fear, as several eclipses have already occurred in recent years and no monsters have appeared. Still, he promises that he will be by her side during this whole ominous event. Tyler will spend the weekend with his father, who lives on the other side of town. He tells how his parents split up 15 years ago, right after the supernatural event that claimed the lives of thousands of people. That morning, Garrett, a war veteran, receives a call from his superior and finds out that strong seismic tremors have been recorded in the last 8 hours. The same thing happened years ago, a few hours before the invasion. Upon arriving at his facility, the man helps his team make preparations for the possible war that is on the way and states that he does not want to face those monsters again. Later, as arranged, David shows up to pick up his son. Before they leave, Laura asks her ex-husband to be by Tyler's side during the eclipse and take the boy back home on Sunday night. Together, father and son watch TV until dawn, and suddenly David receives a call from his uncle. Ted informs him that the signs that occurred before the first attack are repeating themselves and says that David has until noon to gather his family and reach the bunker he has built. In the news, Tyler discovers that marine animals have been found dead on the coast and a mass migration is taking place, just as it did 15 years ago. The next morning, the man receives a call from Laura. The woman asks him to take Tyler home and informs him that Milton, her coworker, has made reservations at the shelter. Just then, the boy receives a message from Maddie and sneaks out to find her. When he goes to talk to his son to pack his bags, David realizes that the boy has disappeared and goes after him. Minutes later, Milton shows up at Laura's house and says that he has left everything prepared at the shelter. However, they need to get there before the place gets full. In order to help her find Tyler, the man uses the boy's cell phone number to track him. Meanwhile, the young man and his girlfriend are lying in the grass. Maddie is afraid of dying that day and asks Tyler not to leave her alone. Then, he assures her that he will stand by her side during every minute. The boy tells her that, according to his mother, his father was not there when she needed him most, and promises that he will not do the same to Maddie. At this time, the young couple spots thousands of birds flying overhead and identifies this as one of the signs of the coming doomsday. Immediately, Tyler sends a message to his father. As the traffic comes to a complete standstill, David leaves his car and rushes to the park to meet his son. Back at the military installation, the monsters have already started to appear and attack the employees with all their fury. Seeing his colleagues being eliminated, Garrett becomes desperate and decides to run away rather than help them. When David finds Tyler, Laura and Milton also show up. The trio gets into the car and Milton drives quickly to the safe house. David tries to convince them to go to his uncle's bunker, but Laura says that they have already made reservations at the government shelter and that is where they are going. There is less than an hour until the eclipse starts and the road is completely blocked. While they are stopped in traffic, the family is surprised by a group of Satanists who claim that Lucifer is coming to bring an end to that world. Minutes later, they finally make it to the shelter, where hundreds of people are vying for a spot. Since the place is reaching maximum capacity, the guards allow only women and children to enter. Laura tries to talk to the soldier and states that Milton has made reservations to stay at that shelter, however, the man ignores her. David then says goodbye to Tyler and asks him to look after his mother. The boy is still a teenager, so he also manages to get in along with Maddie and Laura. However, he doesn't want to leave his father alone and decides to go through that dark event alongside him. In an attempt to bring him back, Maddie and Laura go after the boy and are met with the sad news that the shelter is full. From now on, no one else can enter. Desperate, Laura tries to talk to the guards, but David knows this will not work and pulls her out of the crowd. Their plan now is to get to their Uncle Ted's shelter, which is in the neighboring town in the middle of the desert. Milton believes that they will not make it there and intends to take them to the basement of the school, which must also be full by now. Tyler claims that the place is not safe, as several of his classmates have broken into the basement outside of class hours. Not believing that there is any other alternative, Milton ignores the boy and continues on his way until he comes across another traffic jam on the road. As the family gets out of the car, the ground begins to shake and the eclipse begins. At that instant, thousands of demonic creatures invade the city in search of human flesh. Immediately, David asks his group to find somewhere to hide while he thinks of a plan to save them. Seeing the creatures approaching, David asks everyone to get back into the car and states that he will take them to safety. However, Milton is still determined to go to school and attacks David. At that moment, one of the monsters appears and captures the teacher. David then gets into the car with his family and takes a shortcut to get to the shelter more quickly. Laura is still shaken by Milton's death, but knows that there was nothing that could be done to help him. It is only a few kilometers before they reach Ted's hideout and the gas tank begins to empty. Therefore, they need to take another car on the way and David asks Laura to take the wheel. He instructs his wife to drive away in case something happens. The man goes out looking for a vehicle and finds several people who have been brutally eliminated. He then gets into an apparently empty car and soon discovers that there is a wounded guy trying to hide in the back seat. A few meters away, beside a truck, is a zombie buffalo that, upon smelling human flesh, walks towards the vehicle. Slowly, David closes the door and ducks down in an attempt to hide. While the creature is feeding, Laura considers running away with Maddie and Tyler, but David asks his wife to wait and backs up so they can get into their new vehicle. When Maddie gets out of the car, the monster hears the noise and walks towards her. Determined to get rid of the thing, the man who was sitting in the back seat of the vehicle uses salt to attack the thing, as the substance is capable of destroying the creature. However, his plan does not turn out as expected. The demon is much more resistant than he imagined and manages to eliminate him. While the guy is attacked, David speeds up and takes his family away from that place. Every minute, the surface is populated by monsters that have emerged from the ends of the earth, and humanity's only mission is to manage to survive until the next day. After a few more minutes of travel, the family arrives at Uncle Ted's hideout. The place was built to be a fortified, invasion-proof fortress. David and his family try to get Ted's attention through the intercom and also through the security cameras, but receive no response. While looking at the monitors, the man is being held hostage in his own hiding place. Suddenly, zombie creatures appear in the hills and surround the valley. Desperate, the family tries to storm the place, for this is the only chance they have to survive. Just as they were about to be devoured, the door opens and the group manages to get inside before being attacked. As soon as he enters the safe house, David notices the presence of a strange guy. After escaping from his military base, Garrett has been welcomed by Ted and Stella at the safe house. Immediately, David realizes that the soldier is armed and becomes suspicious of him. In an attempt to calm things down, Ted invites everyone to dinner. While eating his stew, Garrett tells how 15 years ago, during the first event, he was in a refinery with his platoon and all his colleagues were eliminated by those monsters. Garrett was the only one to survive, as he managed to hide in a saltwater lake. While the soldier tells his tragic story, Ted signals David to get a knife and be on the alert. After dinner, the elderly man suggests they play cards to pass the time, but Laura says she is very tired and intends to go to sleep. However, David insists that his ex-wife participate in the game, and immediately Garrett realizes that something is wrong. He draws his gun and orders David to put the knife on the table. Startled, Laura asks what is going on and finds out that they are being held hostage by the soldier. A few hours ago, when Garrett arrived at the shelter, Stella allowed him in, even though Ted did not agree with this. Since then, the couple is being forced to follow her orders. Tyler tries to disarm the guy, but fails and the situation gets even worse. Maddie notices that all the noise outside has disappeared and finds this very strange. Just then, Stella is attacked by a zombie bug, and David manages to steal Garrett's gun to eliminate the creature. However, the monster moves too fast and the bullets are not able to hit it. So Maddie, with the aid of a knife, manages to cut off the animal's head, putting an end to it. Next, David asks Tyler to tie up the soldier while Laura and Ted tend to Stella's neck wound. Looking at the monitors, David realizes that the noise of the gunshots has attracted the attention of the monsters and hundreds of them gather to storm the bunker. Now the group must leave the shelter before the doors are destroyed, and Ted informs them that there is a tunnel through which they can pass without risking being devoured. Garrett is afraid of being left for dead and tells them that he has a vehicle hidden in the valley. The soldier promises that if they take him along, he can guide them to a military base that is only 20 kilometers away. Since this is his best chance to save his family, David decides to trust him and takes all the weapons that were hidden in the bunker before he leaves. Ted hands his nephew a small salt shaker and asks him to keep the object in his pocket for an emergency. Stupidly, David opens the gate, allowing the creatures to enter the shelter. Just then, the man attacks them with a fire extinguisher and runs into the tunnel, where the rest of the family is gathered. Together, they walk at night through the desert and Garrett is their guide. On the way, Laura says that they should be in the government shelter and not in danger in the middle of nowhere like last time. Upon hearing this, David says that the situation is different, because now he is there to protect his family, as he should have been in the first invasion. On the way there, Tyler spots something completely bizarre. A zombie bird is standing in the middle of nowhere without moving, as if its body were frozen. As Maddie approaches, a tentacle grabs her legs and begins to pull her into a hole. Tyler rushes to save his girlfriend and Laura uses a salt bomb to attack the creature, which eventually releases the girl. As they flee, Garrett asks David to untie his hands so that he can help them fight those monsters. While everyone is in danger, David believes that Garrett will pose no risk and decides to let him go. What he did not realize is that the soldier ended up suffering an injury during the attack and his body was infected. When they arrive at the vehicle in the morning, the group encounters new enemies approaching, but the car is not starting. Garrett believes that there is something wrong with the ignition and goes out to try to fix it. Stella feels that there is something wrong with her body and decides to take her own life before she presents any risk to her family. The woman then steals her husband's gun and gets out of the vehicle intending to shoot herself in the head. Patiently, Ted manages to convince his wife to return the gun to him. However, Stella runs toward the monsters and David drags his uncle back to the car. Garrett starts it and they manage to avoid the attack. The mood among the group becomes sad and morbid all the way through. No one can explain exactly what happened, so they don't even touch the subject. Upon arriving at the base, Garrett tries to contact the soldiers, but gets no response. Laura wonders why they left the door open and the five decide to go inside to check it out. The place is apparently empty and Garrett claims that everyone may be hiding in the security room that is in the basement. In order to get into the emergency shelters, they need to restore power to the base. So, David asks Garrett to take him to the engine room so he can fix this while the rest of the team goes to the medical wing to take care of Ted's injuries. According to the soldier, the fire sprinklers were enriched with salt water as a defense mechanism. Within minutes, David manages to get the power to the facility turned on and Laura finds that the wound on Ted's back is very large, which has her worried. The plan now is for the pair to find the others and go together to the emergency shelter. On the way, however, Garrett realizes that something has dripped on his forehead, and when he looks up, he realizes that what has fallen on his head is the blood of one of his colleagues, whose body lies shattered on the floor above. Then, the pair hears a terrifying noise and runs to the medical wing. Once there, David informs his family members that demons have invaded the base and they need to hide in a safe place. As soon as Maddie finishes bandaging Ted's back, the group tries to get to a nearby warehouse that, according to Garrett, has reinforced steel doors. Due to the injury to his arm, the soldier begins to have his senses compromised and does not notice when one of the monsters approaches from behind him. David tries to help him and throws a gun so Garrett can defend himself. The man then manages to get rid of the creature, but there are still other monsters loose on the base. Frightened, Garrett runs into the warehouse and locks the door, leaving his entire family trapped outside to serve as bait for the zombie animals. When he realizes that he has been betrayed, David leaves to find a new hiding place and takes his family to another room. The man remembers what Garrett said about the sprinklers and decides to go to the control room to open the water pump. Before he leaves, he gives Tyler a big responsibility and asks the boy to take care of his mother. Finally, David asks his uncle to protect his family and Ted promises that he will do this. Seeing her ex-husband risking his life to save them, Laura decides to kiss him goodbye because she is afraid she will never see him again. As soon as David leaves the room, the creatures manage to get in and the group must flee. While crawling through the pipe, the man sees monsters scattered around the base, devouring the bodies of the dead soldiers. When he arrives in the control room, he must open the water tank without attracting the attention of the zombie that is feeding right in front of him. After completing his mission, David makes his way back through the pipeline and ends up being followed by one of the monsters. However, during the attack, the man takes the salt shaker that Ted gave him and uses the substance to eliminate the demon. When he returns to the room where his family was, David is distraught to realize that they may be in danger and goes after the group with a fire extinguisher in hand. Meanwhile, the small group is being surrounded by the monsters and Tyler uses his gun to try to get rid of them. David then uses a communicator to direct them to trigger the fire alarm. The problem is that the nearest lever is surrounded by enemies, so Ted decides to sacrifice himself to save the rest of the family. The old man faces the demons with an axe while Tyler tries to eliminate them with the salt bomb. Just as he is about to be eliminated, Ted manages to pull the lever and the sprinklers are activated, releasing salt water on top of the monsters. In this way, the creatures are destroyed and the group is convinced that the battle is won, since there is less than an hour until the end of the invasion. The demons are already returning to the interior of the earth after taking thousands of lives. However, many still remain on the surface. Due to the contamination, Garrett becomes delirious and is determined to eliminate his group. Tyler tries to stop him and gets shot in the shoulder, but before the soldier can take another victim, David appears and hits him over the head with the fire extinguisher. Suddenly, a mutant centipede appears and David attacks it. Furious, the creature grabs Garrett and swallows him alive. Meanwhile, the family takes the opportunity to escape and hide in the nearest room which, coincidentally, is a chemistry lab. With the help of Maddie and her ex-husband, Laura, who is a scientist, assembles a salt bomb, and David manages to throw it at the giant insect just as it destroys the door. Relieved that they managed to survive that brutal attack, the group waits for the final minutes to leave the facility. At noon, they can finally walk quietly through the desert and drive back home. Great damage has been done in every city in the world, but at least for now, the terror has passed and it is time to rebuild all that has been lost. With all this chaos, humanity has certainly learned a lesson and will be more prepared for a possible new attack.